Hey, it's Arcsecond. In this video, I'll cover the 7.15 patch notes and how it affects tier list. So starting off, we had an extremely fast hotfix to Sivir. They had buffed her damage by 30, and buffing a base damage by anything that's over pretty much 10 is an insane buff generally, especially if it's an ability that's important or spammed frequently. So they already brought it down to 35, and the original was 25 up to 105. With this change, with Sivir was already starting to see some play, and then since she's already went on to live, I think a lot of pros have already put some games into her, already starting to play her. I think she'll naturally just move up to S tier with how she fits into meta and with the small buff that she received. Ariat will update once he's live. So Kali was already doing also really well this last patch. Sivir and Kali were two champions who were starting to see play based on the changes in Sim 14. And now they upped the AP ratio on her passive by 0.1 and brought down the W cooldown by 2 seconds. I think these changes are really good. I think we can even move her all the way to S tier. I think she'll be really strong in solo queue and might even see some competitive play. I think we move everything up. Yeah, I think Akali will be banned quite frequently. Might even move her to the ban list. I think she probably will end up here. Alright, now Azir. Azir is pretty hard to balance. We have him at B right now because of that. They removed hurt a lot of his kit and then also the numbers. They're upping the base damage on W at later ranks by 25 at level 18. Not bad changes for Azir. I still don't think he'll be top tier. Think about if we move him to A. I think so. I think with his kit and that change, he'll definitely be slightly better. Alright, we have Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath ended up being one of the stronger picks. He's banned quite frequently, didn't get to play much last patch. And so they're bringing down the base damage on E by 20 at max rank, and then bringing down the maximum health damage by 1%. So with this change, I think he's still max E with how his kit works now. And I still think he'll be top tier. I think it's still probably about the same. After Mundo, they didn't just E. So now he gains magic resistance by 2% and stacks up to 15 times. So now he's just a big counter to AP heavy team comps, and which was already his role before. So now I think they're just pushing him even further into that slot. And I think his position will still be about the same. A and B looks right. For Echo, Echo's already pretty good, but still loses to a lot of the control mages. Has a decent matchup into Syndra, but then Orianna and something like Talia would still give him a hard time. This will definitely help him trade, and since you're going to be holding this point, since you max Q first, you'll feel this buff for quite a while. I think it is nice for Echo. Don't know if it moves him up to S tier though, but definitely a nice change for Echo. At least we have one of the top junglers. Very strong. Nerf the base damage, the base attack damage by 3. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. At least will still be extremely strong. One of the scariest junglers to see. Now we have Ezreal. Oops. They buffed the cooldown by 1 second early, scaling down to the same cooldown at max rank. This will definitely help his trading and help his early push. We're looking to see if possibly move him to A mid as well with these changes. I think that helps him slightly more in that lane, with some of the current matchups. I think his position still stays about the same. Yeah, 1 second is probably not quite enough, but still not bad. Now we have Gangplank, upping the passive damage by 15. Definitely help his early trading. That's when it's the most important. Usually something that will help the most in some of the melee matchups. So it's probably slightly bigger buff for a top lane. I think the numbers, the tier will stay about the same. Alright, Gragas, extremely strong both top and jungle, and I was also able to use Cinderhulk or use Cinderhulk right now. So they're changing the base attack speed to 0.625, which is pretty standard, and they're upping the cooldown by 20 seconds at rank 1. I think a change like this, you feel it. They did a similar change to Lee Sin not too long ago, and you can feel a change like that. Still normally keeps them in a decent spot. It's not the biggest nerf, but I think it still might push them down since the jungle meta is pretty competitive, and same with top lane. Top and jungle have a lot of good champions right now, so we might move them down. Moving on to Aurelia, another ult cooldown buff. It's lowered by 10 at first rank, and this isn't bad. I think one of Aurelia's weaknesses is their pushing ability, so having this up more frequently is definitely nice, but it's still rather small. Yeah, only 10 seconds. I think they could almost bring this down to 60 earlier, but Aurelia is actually still doing it fairly well. It has some decent matchups top lane right now. Jinx, we have the ADC meta is pretty competitive at B right now. Changing Zap, it goes down to 4 seconds and down by 2 at all ranks, which is pretty good. The only problem is Zap has a fairly long animation. This will help when sieging if she's staying at a fairly long distance. And the most, since in fights she won't be using Zap as often, she'll deal more damage with her auto attacks, and she has similar range with her rockets. See, this will, see this the most when sieging. I'm trying to think. I think we do move her up to A. And one thing I noticed is that Calista is at A right now. With how the support meta works right now, Calista is actually top tier. Yeah, Calista is really good. But so I think we'll move her up. So probably won't see her much in competitive though. Kayn was starting to become a lot stronger this patch. He was one of those champions that did take some time to get used to for a lot of players, but the shadow form is fairly weak, so they're giving him some extra strength. I shouldn't change his position too much. And yeah, some more practice on Kayn. I think they could still probably give him a small buff, and he'd be on par with some of the other top tier junglers like Elise. Lissandra I haven't seen much anymore. Yeah, she's fallen down a decent amount. They're upping this one's big, mana per level by 10. She'll have a lot, and then she still has her passive. There's a chance you can skip the more item, but you probably still might want something like Rose. Always been pretty efficient on her. And then the base attack damage goes up. This will also help her trading. Her trading with her slow on Q and her auto attacks isn't too bad. She can get some autos in, and this will help blast hitting as well. Not a bad change for her. I think we might move her up. Yeah, I think we'll see it slightly more Lissandra. Alright, moving on to Lux. Lux, they're buffing the cooldown on a Q by 2 seconds early, and this is the point you max E first. So you will be sitting on the extra 2 seconds for quite a while. The problem with Lux is still you could clear faster. They address one of the issues. Her shield and the value is pretty small. I believe it's 58 with only 1 point. With this change, a slight chance you buff or you max W second, but I'm pretty sure it'll still be Q. But the shield is doubled if you hit a target on the way back, which is definitely a nice change. But the window where it helps still isn't. Her late game team fighting is still pretty strong, and then like her very early trading is not bad. It's in the mid game where she has the least amount of pressure. This will help slightly, but overall I don't think it changes her position too much actually. Moving on to Nami. Now we have another cooldown buff. They're buffing this by 2 seconds at all ranks, which is pretty good for her. Yeah, the bubble is a pretty strong ability, but generally comboed off of something. With the current meta for support, if she gets a matchup like Janet, it's not bad. think we might still keep her at A for now though. So we have the, yeah, I'll keep her at A. Moving on to Nasus. Nasus was good at the end of last season. There's a ZZ build you could do, but hasn't seen much play since then. So now they're changing his E from a flat armor reduction to percent armor reduction up to 35%, which is definitely a big deal. And they're also changing the Q cooldown when ultimate is activated is reduced. The Q is reduced by 50%. So with both these changes, I think you'll still have similar weakness in competitive play, but this armor reduction is nice for the role he'll probably want to fill. And this is definitely a nice change. I think he'll have a pretty good win rate in solo queue. Not sure. I don't think we'll see him much in competitive though. Yeah, not yet. Which one did we just move up? I think we moved up. Nasus. And we're getting ahead of ourselves. On to Nautilus. Nautilus, the base damage on Q is going up by 20 at early ranks. This isn't too bad, though it won't be used quite as frequently. But still, since you're probably sitting on the point, it's another thing where you'll actually feel the buff for a decent amount of time. The 20 damage on a champion like Nautilus won't make the biggest difference. Death charge is cooldown's going down by 20 seconds early. Nice changes for Nautilus. 140 is pretty long cooldown nowadays. So I think we already adjusted it, but no, this will be definitely better top again. Shyvana is getting base armor increase up to 29, pretty small, but then her E's being changed now as a total attack damage ratio, and will deal extra damage per tick. So just getting this extra damage, definitely nice. Their build, maybe I'll have Titanic Hydra or something will be better, and probably still want Cinderella, something like that might be a viable build. I think we'll definitely push her up. She used to be stronger top laner, but now she probably fits the jungle role better. Yeah, definitely fits the jungle role better now with the changes. And I think, yeah, she'll be a little better. Ascend got changed rather quickly as well with like Sivir after they were released into the patches. But the changes overall, I think they're good for Ascend's identity. And just some slight updates. I think he'll still be in a similar spot, but in a better overall position than he has been. I already talked about the server changes, but yeah, this was the initial buff. Up by a base damage going up by 30 on an ability like Boomerang is really strong. Twisted Fate, they're increasing the base movement speed by 5, which is an extremely good stat and strong stat for Twisted Fate. And you have the movement speed quints, so it does make a decent difference, especially with his playstyle. Might start seeing him slightly more. Definitely nice for the solo QTF players. I think he'd probably still remain at A though. Moving on to Xerath. I have Xerath at A right now. They updated, or they increased the slow from the outer edges of the W, increased it by 15%. The slow at the center still remains the same. This is going up to 80%. It'll be a lot easier to combo your spells off of it, your E and your Q. Now if you still miss the edges of the W, and it's a lot easier to also trade it. You can get some autos and apply your passive with Xerath. So this is pretty nice. And then the base damage on R is going up. Since you have 5 Rs, you're getting possibly 100 extra damage at max rank, which is nice for Xerath. He already has a lot of potential to one-shot an AD carry with just the ultimate right now. And that'll definitely be a little easier now. Might only have to hit, or might have to hit one less. For his position in the meta though, I think he'll still be A tier. He'll still have a hard time competing with some of the other champions. We'll keep an eye on TF. I still think he might be moving up. Zach, I think They've finally addressed Zac this patch. Q, the current health is up to 8%, and the cooldowns also increased by 1 second. And this change is big. We already mentioned how base damage increase of 30 is big, so they cut this by 15. And since you're spamming this even more, especially for needing it to clear, this is a pretty big nerf. I think Zac's definitely going down to at least A. Moving on to Ziggs. Ziggs, they're changing the cooldown on W almost in half. Not quite, but it's going down to 12 seconds. There's a chance you max this at W now, especially if you're playing 6 ADC. And you can get those rotations. And this is also really nice. There's a lot of times where you have to choose, since you're trying to finish off a tower, because you can drop your satchel before the tower, before it gets low enough, and then explode it before the W runs out. And so now with the timing, you'll be able to go for a lot more plays, or a lot riskier plays, and still have a W back up sooner. So I like this change. I think he'll have a really high win ratio in solo queue. Might see the ADC meta is pretty competitive soon with, and some of the mid matchups are still pretty hard. So I don't think his position changes too much, but he will be a pretty good pick. Here are the updates from last patch. Adaptive Helm increased the damage reduction by 5%. With all these changes, I think this item's become pretty good now. I think we'll see it on a decent amount of champions, especially some of the Cinderelic junglers. And Duskblade receiving some more nerfs. It was hotfixed last time. Yeah, this was the update they did with the hotfix, and now they're changing it. They removed the slow, and they updated the damage for melee and range champions. So range champions are getting a lot less. Some of the ADCs like Jhin might switch back to more of the crit builds. I think the still have Ghostblade and Duskblade though. I still think it will be pretty strong on something like Jhin though. You might still see it on Lucian. So I think overall the item is still pretty good. And probably be built still a similar amount. Knight's Vow, this item was really strong. The health has gone down by 50, still not bad. A good amount of bug fixes. And we got some new skins. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.